Once again, thanks to everybody who gave a hand at this event. We'll see you next year. The next item is item I under administration, and that will involve the first read of policy GCFA, and if you remember, a couple of second reads. And so, Dr. Pilch, I'll turn this a three-step part to you, if you don't mind.
Yes, would you like me to start with the teacher portability
policy?
That's
fine, thank you.
Okay, I sure will. And I see that Dr. Ayton has moved closely, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, to assist as necessary. So teacher portability was established as part of the Great Teachers and Leaders Act. We've referred to it as Senate Bill 191. And what portability means is that a teacher can take their current non-probationary status, so their tenured status in a current school district, and upon being hired in a new school district, that teacher may request non-probationary status in the new district if he or she is able to exhibit 2 years of effectiveness ratings on the evaluation system from the sending school district and 2 years or more of student growth achievement data. So what we have here before you tonight is a policy that would help us to govern how we manage the possibility of teacher portability and the possibility of teachers coming in who previously had non-probationary status who would request same here in District 6 upon hiring. This gives our Human Resources Department as well as our administration some guidance in how we would address portability. So Dr. Ayton, what would you add to that, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Good evening, President DeWitt, Dr. Pilch, members of the board. Districts that would be who could access, or teachers that could actually access portability, would be districts that have either a model evaluation system in place for last year, this year, or maybe even the year before, as well as, and there aren't many of those. I can give you some examples. Poudre, Thompson, I think Boulder, Denver Public, Harrison would be the biggest examples of where teachers would now have 2 years under either a state-approved system or the state-approved system, and have 2 years of student achievement data, can actually request this. And where we're gonna get more and more requests this next spring and this next hiring season, so it's good we get the policy in place now. We've had 2 requests currently, one from an SSP, and SSPs are not teachers under the law and they're not eligible, and one other person who only had 1 year of student achievement data. So we're getting this in at exactly the right time. This has been fully reviewed by our legal counsel, and we feel like that this is a reasonable approach in letting us use it as part of our hiring decision as we go forward. That really kind of rounds out, you know, gave a nice introduction, and we'll handle any questions.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Afley.
Thank you very much for your work on this. So when you say growth, how do you define it? Is it for all of their students? Is it for a percentage of their students? And what type of growth are we looking at?
They would have to produce from their district's approved model, either in our case, they might have used Bloomboard or Randa in a system and produced some through maybe a student learning outcome-based model or something that would have been approved by their system or their district. So in one case, in one district, it may be, again, a model where they have those student learning outcomes. In another, it may be more of a district-based model. But it would have to be something where it was part of what they were doing in that district and would be readily available within that system. So, and it would only be districts that have been actually implementing it or using the model, the growth model.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help? I hope I'm answering it.
It does. I mean, we're not going to penalize people who take on bigger challenges than others. I mean,
right.
So it's growth, and if they take on challenges and we show growth, then they're going to be fine.
Correct. And if they were and again, they'd have to be in a district where they were already have these things in place, which is not all of them, because last year, many districts had many of their teachers going, but this is really the first year where the data counts 50% and the professional practice are 50%. So there were a lot of districts last year in flux. It would really be this first group of pilot districts that would really, where a teacher could say, I want my portability. It also is only for non-probationary teachers. If that person did not earn non-probationary status, they're not eligible.
Right.
Excuse me,
question.
Dr. Richard.
So, just to clarify then, people who are coming from out of state, this isn't an opportunity for them?
Not eligible.
And it wouldn't be, how about teachers from charter schools?
Charter schools are an interesting question because it would depend on whether they had the state-approved system. So charters typically, ours included, can waive the model system and do something totally different, and they're not beholden to they're not beholden to that standard where they either have to use the state model or prove that their model meets or exceeds the state model. So really, it would really be whether they're using a state model or if they've gone through that very formal process to prove that their evaluation system meets or exceeds. There's really a range.
And if they've earned non-probationary status.
Correct.
That would have had to have been granted as well.
In the first place, okay.
Correct, which most charters are
charters don't.
at will, or they're year-to-year contracts, maybe not at will, but
sure.
they're year-to-year contracts, so they wouldn't have earned it, one, and two, many of the charters have their own sorts of evaluation systems because they're allowed to. And even in our district, we have a charter that uses the system and others that have their own. So it depends on all those factors.
Okay. And then on the definitions where it says the prior 2 consecutive years.
Correct.
Those are 2 full years of teaching?
Correct. And again, it would come under state law, and that's one of the things we had in the policy, and the lawyers said we didn't need it, was 120 days. So it's not a year of teaching in state law if you didn't serve 120 days. So, and it has to be the 2 previous consecutive, and that's from the Great Teachers and Leaders Act. So it's not one, I did something else and here's
then
my
came
next
back.
one. It has to be back-to-back 2 years in districts that have both data and the professional practice systems in place. It's a good question, too.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Other comments or questions from board members at this time? We'll have a chance to shuffle through a little bit more data, and we'll get a second reading
Okay.
on this, but it seems
Thank
to
you.
me
Those
like
are
we're ready to go.
Excellent questions.
Thank you very much. We do have 2 others that are being reviewed for second reading, and that's the IJ NDAB second read. That's about online instruction. Dr. Pilch, anything that you need to add to that?
This is the same as what we presented to you at the last board meeting. So we've not made any changes to our proposed policy. And again, I'll just remind you that this is a requirement of the Colorado Department of Education that we have this policy in place.
It would be an action item to accept this as a policy, and if a board member is so inclined, I'd be glad to accept a motion to accept policy IJNDAB at this time.
I move that we accept the second read of the new policy for IJNDAB, online instruction.
Second.
There's seconds coming from everywhere, and further discussion or questions? Roll call, Ms. Brand. I'm sorry, excuse me. Yes?
I had my...
Oh, forgive me, I didn't see it. I
If
nodded off. Go
a
ahead.
student participates in extracurricular activity, are they going to be expected to participate in the closest into their traditional home building, or how will that occur? Do we know?
Yes, my understanding is that online students will participate in the school of their attendance area. Is that correct, Bob? I saw Bob back there. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Forgive me, Mr. Ifley, I didn't spot the light. Other comments or questions? It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Ms. Brand.
Mr. DeWitt?
Aye.
Mr. Haefele?
Aye.
Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Lydiak?
Aye.
Dr. Richard?
Aye.
Mr. Richardson?
Aye.
And the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much. The next item, DJBA, second reading on the procurement card purchases. Again, no changes, nothing new to report at this time. Is that correct, Dr. Pilch?
That's correct, Mr. DeWitt. I'll just remind you that this is the policy that we decided we should actually, codify what our practice has been around pro cards.
Did have a good discussion of this last time. Other comments or questions at this time? I'd be glad to.
I would move that the
Please,
I would
go
move
right
that
ahead.
the Board of Education accept the new policy DJBA.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Further questions or comments? Roll call, Ms. Brea.
Mr. DeWitt?
Aye.
Mr. Haefele?
Aye.
Mr. Hall?
Aye.
Mr. Lydiak?
Aye.
Dr. Richard?
Aye.
Mr. Richardson?
Aye.
And the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for helping stand by to answer our questions. The next item is involves the negotiations, an update from our administrative negotiations team. Dr. Pilch, would you like to set this in motion?
Yes, I've asked Mr. Eads, our Chief Operating Officer, who's also been heading up negotiations for the administrative side of our teacher negotiation, to provide us with an update, to bring us all up to speed with the most recent negotiation work and the most recent meetings between the district administration and the Greeley Education Association. And we would like to hear from you all, your insights, your questions, your comments, and further concerns. This is not a decision item tonight. It's simply a conversation and a report. Mr. Eads?
Thank you, Dr. Pilch, President DeWitt, members of the board. I must report there has been no progress in negotiations on any of the district's proposals. I actually thought we came very close to a one-year operating agreement at our last session on Wednesday night, August 12th. However, late in the session, UNISERV GEA informed us that they would not take that offer, which was our 7th offer, to their members for a vote unless it had a step increase or a delayed step increase. You may know our step is 3.75%. A delayed step increase would implement that later in the year. That could be made cost neutral for the current year. However, it would carry a $1.7 million price tag going into the next year. And in fact, we really don't know if we can afford that next year. So that would be something that we couldn't guarantee that we could afford. In addition to that, there was no progress on a solution for the SSP hiring issue. These two issues, a salary step and the SSP hiring issue, dominated our negotiations. The vast majority of our time was spent on the SSP hiring issue. So let me go over that with you first. To put it simply, UNISERV GEA negotiators did not move towards a solution. They would agree to study the problem for another year and bring it back to next year's negotiations. That would be the 8th year in a row that SSP hiring has been an issue, and next year's negotiations would be the 3rd year in a row that it has been a serious and contentious issue in direct negotiations with no solution in sight and our ability to provide services to students at a reasonable cost still compromised. I would point out that with school starting, we are desperate to provide services to students, and so on tonight's board meeting agenda, you may have noticed 3 contractors who will be hired as SSPs at a cost of $75,900 for each position. Using contractors to fill SSP positions cost us more than hiring directly on the administrative, professional, and technical salary schedule. The additional cost ranges from $5,000 to $40,000 more per position, depending on the market and depending on the position. During one of our sessions, we did agree to find a way to operate for one more year and conduct a task force to study the issue. But even after agreeing to that, we were informed that unless we gave a step increase to teachers, UNISERV GEA negotiators would not take any agreement to their members for a ratification vote. So again, since the salary step is the issue that keeps coming back, let me talk to you a little bit about that. The salary offer we made, which was rejected, is higher than inflation. It includes a 3.3% total compensation increase for teachers, plus fully paid medical, dental, vision, and life insurance coverage for teachers. Teachers who qualify for horizontal advancement would actually get a 4.6% increase in cash salary. We have about 190 teachers who it looks like would qualify for that this year. This offer would bring our total compensation for the average teacher to $64,562.
Would you repeat that, please?
Yes. This offer would bring our total compensation for the average teacher cost, if you will, that would be total compensation, it would include benefits, to $64,562 per teaching position. I'd further comment that since our new funding is tied directly to inflation this year at 2.8%, that an offer higher than inflation, I think, is a very reasonable offer to make, and for most employees, it is a reasonable offer to accept, but our offer was rejected. Unfortunately, the current situation is identical to where we were last year at this time. In fact, for the second year in a row, salary and specifically movement on the salary schedule has been the sticking point. After years of steady movement on the salary schedule, the economic downturn in 2008 led to a series of freezes and spending of one-time reserve money to do what we could to help teachers keep pace with inflation. But a combination of greater than average salary step, the 3.75% I referred to earlier, and multiple years of reduced state funding led directly to the situation that we find ourselves in. This problem cannot be fixed in 1 or 2 or 3 years. It will take many years to fix the problem unless we try something different. So I think the time is right to review how we compensate our teachers and to work together on a system that is sustainable. It is neither reasonable nor productive for GEA to bring negotiations to a standstill every year over the current salary schedule. However, as we have discussed at other work sessions, the only way to increase salary at this time is to cut something else. Dr. Pilch has requested a listing of potential cuts if the board chooses to increase the cash salary offer by 0.5%, and I have provided her with that list.
Thank you, Wayne. I sat in on the last negotiation session that went until, I think, after 10:30 at night, the night before school, the teacher school year started. And it was apparent to me that we weren't going to reach a deal, most likely, without us being able to do something more in terms of the salary schedule. It's really unfortunate. It's certainly not where I want to be as a new superintendent with our GEA and with our administration. I am deeply committed to a new way of negotiating, and once we work our way through the contract and into a deal, however that may come to be, it is my intent to work closely with GEA and with our administrative team to structure and design a new approach to bargaining for District 6. As Mr. Eads indicated, we are in the same place we've been for many years, and we have made very little headway. And it would seem, as we look at the budget, and trust me, I have scoured this budget, that we do not have the ability to sustain a 3.75 step plus benefits and the horizontal movement for education each year. So we have to find a new way to do this. In the meantime, I asked Mr. Eads to come forward with the possibility, if we were to add another 0.5% to the 2% that we're currently offering on the base. What would that take for us to do that? Because all of our staff are here now and working, with the exception of the positions we can't fill, we aren't in a situation where we can cut positions without enacting a reduction in force, a RIF, or breaking the promises that we've made to folks who we've hired and who are currently serving in positions for the 2015-16 school year. Therefore, we looked at what is it we could do if we wanted to capture the dollars to do an additional 0.5%, which is just over $500,000, $515,000 is what it would take to do that. So $500,000 plus. We would need to, so we looked at the possibility of eliminating our assessment support and relief that we provide to classroom teachers. We could capture cut from that program and move over, reallocate about $180,000 that we will use this year to provide supports for classroom teachers for the administering of assessments and recording that assessment data. We could reallocate another $200,000 by stopping the purchase of instructional materials at this point, particularly math consumables and additional literacy materials that would be consumables that we have yet to purchase. We could reallocate another $100,000 by not doing the vertical teaming work next spring that we just finished, that has allowed us to redesign and redevelop our curriculum and our assessments, where we bring teacher teams together to do that work each year as we evaluate our curriculum and make appropriate changes for the next school year. We could capture small dollars, the remaining dollars that would be needed, by eliminating the high school summer program next summer, the high school summer school program, the credit recovery for next summer. And so if we chose to move that additional 5%, I have identified areas in which we could reallocate dollars to do that this year. Those would have to be permanent cuts, or we would be looking for another $500,000 plus next year to continue this once we do it. The 2% that is currently budgeted is considered to be in the budget as ongoing. And the staff worked prior to my getting here to identify areas in which to allow for that 2% that was proposed to go on to the base. You know, I think one of the really unfortunate things is the administration came out with our offer of 2% early on, believing it was the best offer, and having built the budget with that 2%. And unfortunately, as negotiations go, it's natural that UNISERV and the association would hope to move us beyond that 2%. And we really, without cutting existing programs and services at this point in the year, we don't have much wiggle room. So I leave it to you to give us your questions and any other insight that you might have for us.